It's Mel. It is April 10th, and it's time to do the quarter year tag. The quarter year tag is one of those annual quarterly tags that booktubers all do. Pretty much all booktubers do these tags. They are to check in on your reading throughout the year. So at the beginning of the year, I do the New Year tag, which is like a tag to present the new year. Think about what you want to read in the new year. Think about your year ahead. And then I do the quarter year tag at the end of quarter one. So today, as I do this tag, I will only be talking about the books that I've read from January to March. And then we do the mid-year tag, which some people do earlier in the year, but I always do after quarter two. And then we do the end of year tag, which really talks about the end of the year, not the prior 3 quarters. So I do that right around quarter 3. And then I also do the postscript tag, which is talking about quarter 4 as well. And it's talking more about like your reading as a whole for the year. It's like a little recap video. So I always do these every year. I love them, and I think the quarter year tag is a great way to check in on my reading at the quarter of the year. I can't remember who originally posted this tag, but I will leave it in the description below, and it is usually called the quarter year crisis tag. I guess because a lot of people are scrambling around to try to meet their goals. I am not scrambling around to try to meet my goals. In the first quarter of the year 2026, I read 54 books, which is question number 1. So I'm definitely ahead of schedule. I set my goal to be, let me think, 135? Yeah, I set my goal to be 135. So I'm currently like 20 books ahead of schedule. I'm usually about 10 to 15 books ahead of schedule, just generally because I set my goal to be a little low. Last year in 2025, I read over 200 books. I'm on schedule to read over 200 books again this year, but I never want my reading goal to, the number of books that I'm reading goal, to be so vast that I can't achieve it and then I feel bad. I'd rather be like ahead. I do think this year I could have bumped this up to like 165 or even 185 without worrying about it. But this is a goal that I don't look at that much through the year. Like I'll check on it in the quarters maybe, or I'll look just to see how many books I've read, but I don't really care. Like if I were to read less than 135 books for the rest of the year, that would be fine. You know, if I ended up for some reason slowing down in my reading and I read less, that would be totally fine with me. If I read more, which it seems like I'm going to, that's fine with me too. The next question is, have you already found a favorite of the year? And I would say definitely yes. There were some standouts. I read Beloved by Toni Morrison in my aim to read all of Toni Morrison's work in publication order. I read A Distant Father, which was a total surprise to me, which is a question later, but I really enjoyed this short novella. I found a totally random book of poetry, Sin, that could definitely end up being a favorite of the year. This is by the poet I. And then I've been reading NYRB books, one NYRB book per month for 2026, and I read Cassandra at the Wedding, which is a queer classic, and I really, really loved that one too. It felt kind of like it was written for me in a lot of ways. The next question is any least favorite books, and I would say like no. I've felt pretty good about all the books that I've read. There's definitely books that vary in the spectrum of whether I loved them or not. I have loved quite a few books. I have liked quite a few books. I have, thought of quite a few books were okay, but I don't think there were any books so far that I thought was bad. I feel like by this time last year I had quite a few books that I thought were bad. This year I feel like I've had quite a few books where I was like, oh, I'm not gonna like this. For instance, After Dark My Sweet by Jim Thompson, I started out reading that book thinking, oh, I'm not gonna like this, and then I ended up really liking it. So no least favorites so far. The next question is your most read genre. According to Goodreads, my most read genre is mystery. So obviously with Goodreads, they count multiple themes for their genres. So like maybe you have a queer mystery, they're going to count it as queer and mystery. Maybe you have a historical mystery, they're going to count it as historical mystery. Maybe you have a literary mystery, they're going to count it as historical and mystery. But by far still, the most books that I've read in any genre is mystery, and that definitely tracks. Mystery is my favorite genre. I always read a lot of mysteries for a March Mystery Madness, so I feel like it's pretty safe to say in the beginning of the year, in the first quarter, and at the last quarter, because I always read a lot of mysteries for Cloak and Dagger Christmas. Mystery is going to be my highest genre, but overall mystery is always my highest genre. What came in next was literary, and I have read quite a few literary books this year, but I've read a couple of books that I think would qualify as literary that in Storygraph that I wouldn't qualify as literary, so, you know, make of that what you will. And then I added a question because I wanted to track how many series that I've started in the first quarter of the year, and I have started, new to me series, 9 series so far. I did a whole video on my series tracker for 2026, and that was a couple of months ago, so it was like right at the beginning of the year, so I had not gotten to 9 series yet. Out of those 9 series, I think I will continue on in 8 of them. So that's a lot of series that I'm adding every year. I'm still hoping this year to finish out some series. I have been making progress in series so far in 2026, but I would like to finish some series in 2026 as well. The next question is a book that surprised you. Definitely all the books that I mentioned as my favorite books, I think count as surprises. Beloved surprised me. I ended up reading it twice in a row. And it surprised me mostly because I thought it was going to be too much for me, and it was not too much for me, and I loved it. A Distant Father surprised me because I had no expectations at all for that book. It's been on my shelf for a while, and I absolutely adored it. Sin surprised me because I'm always surprised when I love poetry, especially if it's from an author that I've never heard of before. So Long a Letter surprised me kind of for the same reason that Beloved surprised me, because I thought this was going to be a really heavy, hard book, but I actually ended up really loving it. Kind of a negative one that surprised me was Never Whistle at Night. I started reading this one in November of 2025, and it has a lot of Indigenous authors that I really like. It's an Indigenous horror anthology, so I thought I was going to love it, and I ended up just thinking it was pretty meh and forgettable. This might be, as far as like any disappointments or any least favorites, that anthology might count right now as my least favorite. I did enjoy some of the stories, and I'm super happy to read it. Always super happy to read Indigenous authors in general, but it was surprisingly disappointing. It was surprisingly not as good as I hoped it would be. The next question is there a 2026 release that you haven't read yet that you want to? And I don't really follow new releases. I did read the one new release I pretty much always read every year, which is the new installment of the Wayward Children series by Shauna Maguire. So that was through Gates of Garnet and Gold. I already finished that one and I really enjoyed it. A good addition to the series. And next year I'll have the same answer to this question, and hopefully I will have already read that Wayward Children installment as well. But a book that I am looking forward to in 2026 that I know is coming out is the new Emily St. John Mandel. I've read 3 Emily St. John Mandels, the most popular 3, which are Station 11, The Glass Hotel, and Sea of Tranquility. The Glass Hotel is actually my favorite, unpopular opinion, I know, but I'm super excited to see what Emily St. John Mandel puts out next. I do want to read her backlist as well, but I never find it. So I know that you can get some of them on audio, and I may do that, but I am trying to read down my physical TBR this year, so I'm trying not to read a lot of unowned audiobooks. The next question is, what is a goal that you're succeeding at? I have to say that I made a goals video this year. I wasn't going to, and then I ended up doing it, and I have completely forgotten every single goal pretty much that I set in that video. I will leave my goals video listed down below, but we're gonna go off of like current or vibes or whatever, and a couple of things I've already mentioned. I want to read series from my series tracker, either to get down series or hopefully to finish series. So a goal that I am succeeding at is I've been reading series, right? I have, even though I've started quite a few series, also read quite a few series off of my series tracker. A goal that I have not succeeded at, which is the next question, a goal to focus on, is completing series on that tracker. So that's a goal I'm succeeding at and a goal that I need to focus on. Next, I would say reading translated work. I know that that was on my goals list, and I have been wanting to read translated work more every year if possible. I just looked at my year over year, which I still want to make a video of, and I'm not doing great on the translated work just generally. I've only read 4 translated books in the first quarter of 2026, which seems wrong, but at first glance looking on my shelf, it is probably right. I'm not doing well in that. I need to focus on it. Something that I think I am doing well, and a goal that I have every year, is to read at least 50% BIPOC authors, and I'm currently at 53.7%, so that's pretty good if I can just keep that up for the rest of the year. Another goal that I always have is to read like between 25 and 30% queer work, and I'm at 27.6, so not bad. And then I would say a goal that I am succeeding at but also need to focus on is still reading down my physical TBR. In the beginning of 2026, I was doing a Read What You Own challenge. I will leave those videos listed down below so you can check them out. But I did complete my Read What You Own challenge, sort of. Did I fail it? Yes. Did I complete it? Yes. So I have been reading a lot more Read What I Own. I've been reading more What I Own books, and I want to continue doing that. I want to try to read down my physical TBR, which means not borrowing as many unowned audiobooks or other books. I'm still reading a lot from the library. I just read books that I physically own on audio from the library. And going along with that goal is, again, something that I'm succeeding at, but I also want to continue working on, which is to pare down the books that I'm bringing into the house. The Read What You Own saw me trying to not bring in a lot of books, which is important. In the first quarter of the year, I only brought in 85 books, which is good for me. It's kind of where I normally am, but the first 2 months of the year, I only brought in 7 books each month. And a lot of those books were books that were going on my red shelf. So a lot of those books were not going on my TBR. But in March, I did go to a bunch of book sales, and I have a bunch of book sales that I'm going to go to this month. So I will be bringing in books, but I'm going to try and keep it down. The lowest year, again, looking at my year over year, the lowest amount of books that I brought in a year was in the year 2022. I only brought in 393 books. That sounds insane. Remember, some of those are going on my red shelf. A lot of those were read, and that was the first year that I really started tracking the books that I bring in. The most books that I've brought into my library in a year was in 2025. So last year, even though last year I was actively trying to bring in less, and I brought in 621 books, which is insane. That's crazy. But I've been reading a lot of books as well. Like I said, this year I'm really trying to bring in less, be a little bit more mindful, be a little bit more purposeful, be a little bit more intentional with the books that I get at library sales. So, hopefully that's true. Oh, and then the last question is to call out some bookish community members. Usually at the end of the year, I do a video calling out BookTube creators that I really like. Usually I do a few that are under 500 subscribers and then a few that are under 1,000 subscribers. I didn't do that this year, so I think I'm going to make it its own video and talk about some things that I love about BookTube and some things that I do not love about BookTube, and some reasons that I would watch you as a BookTuber and some reasons that I would not watch you as a BookTuber. Not to be like shady. Obviously there's lots and lots of BookTubers that I love. I feel like last year a lot of BookTubers were burnt out and they didn't make a lot of videos, myself included, and then I think this year people have had a real resurgence and they're really excited to make BookTube videos again, and they're making a lot of videos, so I'm really excited to watch all the creators that I love. Like I said, I'll save that for another video calling them out because I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, but what I would love from you is to answer this question in the comments below. If you could recommend me a booktuber or a bookish community member that you've been loving recently, whether it's someone new or old, just someone you're feeling like super excited and happy to watch their videos, someone you're excited to see in your subscription box, you're loving their videos, videos for one reason or another, if you could leave that in the comments below, that would be awesome. I'm always looking for more bookish creators that I can watch. So let me know if you've read any of the books that I mentioned here. Answer any and all of these questions in the comments below, or make your own quarter year tag video. This is a video that people don't really tag each other in, but if you want to consider yourself tagged, definitely feel free. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!